So I'm Luke. I'm currently on Team Hydra. Our main responsibility for the program are like authentication, user manager, entity manager, and customer records. And I started working for IQ 3 years ago, about 3 years ago as a QA, and I recently switched to developer. One thing probably more unique for me, it's because I just moved to Canada before I joined IQ.
Yeah.
And so during that time when I was searching for a job, I already see this trend of QA transitioning into developer. So that's like we've been talking about this all along since the beginning of the transition. Like I kind of was heading that direction anyway before the transition. So I guess that's probably one of the unique part of experience that I have in compared to other people who are doing the transition. I assume most people who did the transition is mainly because that's what the company decided to go towards, right?
Right. So you're saying that you sort of saw that or anticipated that
Mm-hmm.
more than maybe other people had,
Mm-hmm.
though it has been a pretty common industry experience to try and
Mm-hmm.
move that direction.
Mm-hmm.
You were pretty well prepared. You already had a computer science background,
Mm-hmm.
and did that sort of just dovetail or fit with what you wanted to do anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, Tell me about, because that is an interesting thing. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
this really intense changeover process,
Mm-hmm.
which you did really well. You
Mm-hmm.
thrived in it. How
Thanks.
how come you were uh, able to be successful? Do you pinpoint some things that helped you with that?
Uh, I guess the biggest thing is I've always been thinking about doing this, so I'm kind of on and off trying to prepare myself a bit more. Although still I don't feel like I was well prepared. I think the biggest successful point for my process was the mentor. Like they did a great job helping me like focusing on what I need to do to meet the minimum criteria for the transition.
Yeah,
And and
that
without that I'd be lost because uh, being a developer is such a wide topic, like so many things you need to learn and so many things you think you need to learn to be a developer. With a proper mentor, they help you focus on the essential, and that save a lot of time. Yeah.
there. Excuse me. There's this distinction I've heard many times before
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about what we look for in a software developer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between being able to code and
Mm-hmm.
tell a computer what you want it to do
Mm-hmm.
versus what it means to be a software developer
Mm-hmm.
and sort of have it fit within a much bigger complex system.
Mm-hmm.
Is that that that's where the mentor comes in
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
help
think
you
so. Yeah,
focus?
because like there are always new technology, new tool, new ways to do things you can learn as a developer. And during the transition, if you lost the traction and dive into that, thinking that's what's needed, you ended up not getting the bigger picture. I think like how you can fit in as a developer and be productive rather than like knowing all the tools. Right, so it's more like you need to quickly learn the tool when it's needed, but you need that mental picture of like how things are structured and how to better design things and all that. I think that's more important than knowing all the tools.
Yeah, thank you. I, I, I'm always searching for the magic phrases to
Mm-hmm.
tell people what they should study more than
Mm-hmm.
just the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, I don't know that there is a magic phrase, but you
Mm-hmm.
say the design. Like, was there a a school of thought or a topic that just sort of opened your eyes about this next level of demand? Like, was it about design patterns? or
Yeah, kind of. Like back in school, I was there. Like we probably taught different things than compared to the modern industry. So like for example, test-driven design. Like we were already in thinking of that of testing. Like back in school, like our assignment will have like acceptance test that you need to pass before you can submit, and the instructor will only grade your assignment when you pass their more advanced test. So in a sense, we are already doing test-driven design, but we're not really doing it as like that's what you need to do. And I think learning that is a big change for me, and that does help me speed up my design process because from my past experience from doing the assignment back in school, I always ended up thinking too much, trying to cover every scenario and trying and get stuck on the design rather than start doing things. And I really like test-driven design because when I was applying that, it makes me feel like I can get things done more quickly because instead of focusing on how to solve every single problem, I became more focused on solving what's needed, right? And there's always going to be special cases, and that can be handled later. At least you have, if you have a good test created based on the requirement, you're already working towards something that meets the minimum requirement for the overall product. And I think that's a better and faster approach.
so I think I know the definition of
Mm.
test driven and uh, but I'm curious if you would describe it, especially if somebody doesn't know about it. Like, what does it mean for a software developer to start with the test? What do you do, and like, what's the procedure?
So from what I learned, it's so for example, you first analyze the requirements, and based on that, you have some basic test that will show that your overall product will meet the requirement. And then on top of that, you start thinking some special cases, for example. But for me, I try to not over focus on that part. So basically, you have a minimum set of tests that's meeting, proving your application is meeting the requirement, and cover some special cases. And once you start designing your application to pass the test, you know that by the time your application pass every single test, you meet the minimum requirement. And rather than just thinking about how you can do things better and get caught up with all the design rather than getting something that's working.
It really keeps focus, doesn't it? Like
Hmm.
you don't think about all those other things you could be doing.
Yeah.
You just want to make that test pass.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the refactory afterwards can improve how the efficiency and handling the special cases and all that. Yes, of course, like you might end up with like wrong overall structure because it's for the special cases that you missed. But in terms of efficiency, I still feel you get a functional product much quicker this way instead of like spending all the time trying to design the perfect system. But in reality, I don't think that's possible because there's always going to be special case. And so if you focus on that too much, you ended up spending extra time and not getting something out on the market quickly.
Yeah. Let's move forward in the story a little bit. Like you had
Mhm.
this really accelerated path to become a developer at
Mhm.
iQmetrix,
Mhm.
and I presume you're still learning.
Yes.
What shape does learning take now uh, within your team, or like how do you grow, and maybe what are the areas where you most focus on growing?
Currently, it's more, I guess, more on learning all the tools, all the different repo that we own and we use. Because as a QA, a lot of the time I don't really need to look into the code. Like I have an understanding of how things work in our team, but not necessarily exactly the detail, like how it was working and what tool it was used, like what package or all that. So I think currently that's my main focus, like getting to know all the real detail. And I guess staying with the same team really helps in terms of that because I already have an overall picture on how things work. I just need to look into the code and prove that, okay, that's how it get from the code to the actual result.
Uh, where's the growth area for development and learning overall for you or for developers? Where do you anticipate you're headed?
I think it's the angle, like how broad you're thinking when you're working on a problem, right? So like I said, like as a junior, I probably tend to more focus on like the current task, like the current requirement. But as a more senior developer, I feel like you'll be thinking more, not just that, but more like how it interact with other services and how it's gonna impact in terms of like loading and all that, rather than just getting it to work, because you have to start thinking about the real scenario. Like, for example, if like you have thousands of people connecting every day or per minute, how your program is going to be able to handle that, how you're going to structure that. As a junior, uh, that's probably not something you consider because you ended up working on a ticket, which is a specific part of the overall product, right? So you tend not to worry about that too much. Like you still need to, but that's not really the focus. And as a senior, I guess you're more focused on like how to better overall solve the problem for different scenario and how to break it down so that the junior developer will be able to work on it.
Thank you. My guess, Luke, is
Mm-hmm.
that it's a very gradual trend from
Mm-hmm.
junior to senior,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the key things is the level of relationship or impact that you think about. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's completely reasonable for
Mm-hmm.
you to say, I just need to make this task or
Mm-hmm.
this ticket work
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's cool that you're thinking about the whole thing. But even your next step might be,
Mm-hmm.
how do I make it so that all of these tasks
Mm-hmm.
share with each other? I mean, I'm sure you do that too, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
lots of pathway between.
Mm-hmm.
I
And I
yeah,
guess also like how you can mentor the junior.
well, see, that was it's actually just what I was going to ask. Like clearly for a senior person, they're mentoring team members.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect
Mm-hmm.
that never starts too early.
Mm-hmm.
Are you mentoring anyone? Are you teaching anybody coding?
Not really
Or
teaching coding, but like passing on experience, because
yeah,
we do have newer team member on our team. So like in terms of coding, I might not be able to give them help or guidance, but as how our application works, because of the QA background and the experience, I was able to point them to the right place and explain how things work and passing on like experience on that. So in a sense, yeah, kind of like helping the new onboarded member to get up to speed.
that's excellent. There is also coders
Mm-hmm.
that I think you could teach. Like, you don't have to sign up for a new job,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
if I want to figure out more coding,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's time for you to be able to coach me. You could give me lots of advice. And I don't mean that for me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are other people that are like, wow, how does this work?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and anybody at whatever level they're at
Mm-hmm.
probably has a valuable perspective to help people see
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you for this time.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully
No
that
problem.
was
Sure.
pretty painless for you.
That's okay.
I I really
It's good.
appreciate it, and I think it's really valuable for other people to
Mm-hmm.
hear your perspective on this
Mm-hmm.
too, Luke.
It's good
Thank
to
you
be
very
able to
much.
share. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.